Sansolis, is one of our mentors for this digital strategy mentoring program, and she kindly offered to share her knowledge and expertise with our European network today. So with that, let me hand it over to Sansolis.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me here today. I am super excited about this, and I am happy to recognize also some faces. So it looks like we are becoming some kind of family. So anyway, what I am going to be doing today is I am going to be showing you a number of both tech and people integration tools for what I call no-nonsense and, yes, this is true, what I'm going to say, joyful digital integration. It is possible, right? So by the end of the webinar, you will have learned a number of things, 6 to be precise. Number 1, data integration is a technology issue and then a people issue. Number 2, departmental integration is a people issue, which will impact your technology. Number 3, technology, people, strategy, and governance form a larger system, interacting together and evolving in real time as your needs change, your business needs, and also as the market changes, right? For those of you who are not familiar with the word system, what I mean is a group of people or a group of events, things, etc., that are in a relationship of interdependence, right? Number 4, I want you to think about strategy in 2 different ways. When we are talking about a data integration strategy, we need to do that looking at the exact business outcomes that you want to achieve. And over time, I want you to look at strategy, you know, your corporate strategy and your digital strategy as 2 things that will become one and the same. And when that happens, digital will be part of the story of how your company makes money, right? Number 5, governance is not only about protection and control, but it is also about enablement. We need to enable the sharing of information. And number 6 will be the importance of a data literacy program, right? And all of the tools that I'm going to be showing you, whether tech tools or people tools, they all put business at the center so that your people and your tech will be the vehicle, yeah, enabling better business. So I want you to imagine that we are listening now to very dramatic music because we are going to be talking about, you know, the problem that is going on today. So the question that we want to answer is IT too heavy? And there are a number of things happening. Also 6 things, by the way. So organizations use too many tools and too many applications, right? According to Forrester, a small to mid-sized company has between 25 and 50 systems. And a large organization can have as many as 900, yeah, which means that that is a lot of data to consolidate into a single view of your customers. And the reason for all of those systems is thinking only about the needs of your own department, thinking in silos, instead of thinking of the organization as a whole. So this is indeed a technological problem. We need to integrate all of those systems, but it is also a people problem because it is people who in the first place thought of implementing systems only for the benefit of their own department. Number 2, today, integration is not thought of as a capability, right? So if you look at most integrations today, point-to-point integrations, they are kind of rudimentary. Today, I need this, so I am going to connect this to that, and I'm going to put a Band-Aid in there. Tomorrow, I need that, and we put another Band-Aid in there. So we end up with this kind of, spaghetti-like infrastructure, right? And we also end up with a lot of technical debt. In other words, there is an additional cost caused by having to rework all of these band-aid work, right? Instead of just doing it right from the start. So change is constant, but agility is becoming more and more difficult and also more expensive. At a certain point, change is so expensive and so complicated that we just continue to do things as we have always done them, right? And then because there is no proper documentation, right? Then you sort of lost any visibility as what is happening within your organization, which can make you vulnerable. Number 3, we have become masters at collecting data, but data is not the same thing as information, right? So much of the data today is of very poor quality, and we need to translate it into insights in order to be able to make good decisions and drive the business. Then there is something else that is happening, and that is what I call the "this is how we have always done it" mentality. And what I mean with that is IT is not giving us what we need, so we default to the habit of inserting more people into the process. Yeah, what I mean with this is IT is not giving me what I need, so I'm going to look for someone within the organization who can retrieve the information from IT, who can translate it for me in a way that it makes sense and that I can use it for my decision making. So by doing that, we are becoming larger and heavier and slower. And by the time that you respond to what's happening in the market, you are actually too late, right? Number 5, the cost of IT is high, and there can be many reasons for that. Imagine if all employees are downloading the exact same piece of information to the company folder. That means that you're going to need a lot of storage space, which is going to mess up your IT budget. But there could be other reasons. For instance, when there is no single source of truth, you will need to rebuild your data processing pipelines from scratch, which is of course very expensive in both in terms of both time, but also cost. So here's a very strange thing happening. Budgets have become tighter and tighter, and yet we are paying people to do the same work over and over again. So we are creating the problem that we are actually trying to solve. That's a contradiction. And number 6 is that IT, and this is in my opinion a very important one, IT is still seen today as a service provider. Right? So if you are a company of scale today, or you want to scale in the 21st century, yeah, you are first and foremost in the software business. It doesn't matter what you do. It could be medical supplies, it could be insurance, it could be banking, it doesn't matter. Whatever you are doing today, you are a software company, right? So is IT too heavy? Yes, traditional IT is absolutely very heavy, which means that we need to reinvent IT. So it is not an isolated department. It is not a service provider. It needs to have a seat at the table, at the business table, right? And everyone, regardless of their role or of the BI tools that you are using, needs to be data literate. By reinventing IT this way, it will become clear why IT actually does provide a lot of value today in a digital world, right? So in this way, IT will become part of that story of how you make money, right? So after telling you about this terrible scenario, which is of course familiar to many of you, I am going to show you a better way, right? Because it has become possible already to deliver the insights that we need faster than ever and at a much lower cost than the cost that we are facing today. And for this, you don't need to build or manage any complicated analytics products or technologies. So, but before I do that, there are 2 roles that are suffering from everything that I just told you about. And those two roles are, of course, the customer. All of these issues mean that the customer experience is less than optimal. To give you an example, during the customer journey, the customer will have contact with different departments in your organization. And there is nothing more frustrating than having to repeat the same story over and over and over again to different people. Yet, if we don't integrate our data, that is exactly what we are achieving, frustrating our customer. And this will, of course, impact your revenue. And there is a second role, and that is you, the decision maker, right? Because if data is isolated, right? If data is in silos, if there is no communication between departments, that means that you, as a decision maker, are in an impossible situation because you have an incomplete view of the business, right? So, you know, for instance, that your sales team will be talking about new clients, your marketing about leads and traffic, accounting about expenses and profit. And yet, each department's analysis is limited by its own view, by its own needs, right? So what links all that together, you don't know. And this is going to impact the business. But there is a second way, reason why you are suffering, and that is that if you are someone who is making decisions about people, yeah, your leadership is also going to suffer, right? So that said, I am going to show you now a better way. So I am going to take off my headset because otherwise you will not have any sound. And after the video is over, I will connect my headset again. So hold on a minute.
Throughout history, data has been a steady flow. But it has evolved into an ocean, a flood, a tsunami, a perfect storm. We are drowning in data. All of that data is isolated in fragmented bubbles of value, making the value of data burst into nothing. Someone ought to do something. Kangler has created a platform where you can access, monitor, create, shape, analyze, manage, and govern your data. And there are no strings attached. It's just Kangler, transforming dreamers into innovators. Go to beta.getkangler.com and see and try for yourself.
So, could you all hear the sound?
Yes.
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 Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
Good. So, I have a question for you. You can all unmute yourselves. What went through your mind when you were watching this video? Anyone would like to share?
Yeah, it's Lucia here. It really resonates because it's what we live every day.
Uh-huh. Because? Okay, I think we lost her. Anyone who would like to say something?
Yeah, maybe just it's a completely true story. Like I've been working in different companies, and it doesn't matter if it's like a really big one or a startup. It's just like if you don't care about managing data at the beginning, you're just really drowning. And just to identify the data that really matters and then put it into KPIs that really help you drive your business, like doing that translation and getting it in a properly visualized way, then yeah, all the data is worth nothing.
Exactly. Yeah. Anyone who would like to add anything?
I think really we are overwhelmed by amount of data what is around us, and it's difficult to understand which one give me what kind of value for my business decisions.
Exactly. Okay, so Kangler was actually my client last year, and when they asked me to help them with team leadership development and also creating a fully cross-functional team with a clear shared goal. So basically what they asked me to do was to do to their team what they do to your data, right? So because people, just like data, yeah, they are also isolated in fragmented bubbles of value, yeah, departments, making that value of the people burst also into nothing unless they are connected into a 360. So what started out as a client, a consultant relationship, evolved into a relationship as business associates. I will introduce some others today, but Kangler is one of them. So together, we help clients integrate both their data, but also their people, so that you can tap into the insights of that big pile of data that is actually a gold mine today, but that doesn't feel like one, right? So I am going to show you a matrix, and I would like you to take, like 30 seconds to have a good look at it. And I would like you to unmute yourself again, once you have had the time to look, and to share with us where your company is at the moment.
May you explain what you mean by integrated people?
Okay, good. Yeah. So I just mentioned that we need to do to people what we do to data, right? So it is all about building cross-functional teams. Organizations are organized in silos, both vertically and horizontally, right? Departments don't talk among themselves, but also the layers of leadership don't talk among themselves. So building a 360 team means actually building a team across all layers of the organization, right? And that is what I mean with integrated people. Yeah.
So I would say, unfortunately, probably if I look at the whole company, it is definitely non-integrated data, non-integrated people. But in some areas, I might find non-integrated data, but at least integrated people. So where people start, discussing topics, part like cross-functional, and trying to look for solutions. But it hasn't reached the step where actually this is translated to the data.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yes, it's also what I've seen at it's a Big Four company. I think people are aware of it, but it's also part of their DNA, because KPIs are only within the different departments, and so there is a problem of sharing, and that's really what is preventing. I mean, it's a big hurdle. They are discussing it, as I know, for several years. But again, like it has not been, there's no solution yet, and it has not been translated into reality, basically, because of those separate KPIs.
Right, yeah. So sharing, what you just said, that is really the big issue that is at hand here. So achieving digital transformation is actually changing the power dynamics in an organization. It's really a power issue. It's really a people issue. So I will be talking about that in a second when we get to the people. I must say, in my experience working with clients, I come across many organizations that are somewhere in between the bottom left and the upper left. Yeah, somewhere in between. But achieving digital transformation is being on the top right quadrant. Yeah, if your data is integrated and if your team is a 360 team, then you are good to go, because then you will be able to move really fast and respond in real time to what's happening in the market.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So if I just, let's say I just started my own company or social startup. So if you're really at the beginning, right, you can still, you know, start everything from scratch, right? Can include the people. So what would you recommend in terms of, you know, data? How would you set it up, and how would you begin?
Well, it all depends on the startup. This needs to be looked up in a case by case way. But I think at the beginning for a startup, I mean, everything needs to be done. Absolutely everything. And if you are the founder, then you are probably the one doing everything. So I think your first priority will be to learn to delegate all of your work to other people. Because as we will see in the process also in a few slides, unless you do that, nothing else is going to work. So I think delegation or enablement or, you know, sharing responsibilities, that should be in your mind from day one. And then you can focus on other things, but because otherwise you're going to burn out as a founder. So
yeah. Okay, thanks.
Okay, so going back to the matrix, the name of the game today is speed, right? Because things are changing so fast, and for that speed you need two things. You need the single source of truth, right? That unified logical data model of consumable information in real time, which is what we just saw with Kangler, and because it's and you need that cross-functional or 360 team, right? Remember the example that I gave you in the beginning about IT, right? When IT is not giving me what I need, what is the instinct? Is to find someone within the organization or to hire an entirely new person who can go to IT, retrieve the information, and prepare it so that I can make sense of it. But that is going to make us slower, and that is going to create even more silos, right? So we will always be late when responding to what is happening in the market. So for successful digital transformation, I cannot emphasize this enough, you need both. You need integrated data and you need integrated people across all layers of the enterprise. And of course, you need also a data literacy program, which I will also say something about in a second. So that said, I want to show you the Kangler dashboard so that you get an idea of what it looks like, right? So having this unified data model of consumable information in real time across your entire organization, right, which is what Kangler gives you, this should be really the center of your universe today, right? The interesting thing about Kangler is not only that it unifies all of your existing tools, but that it looks at your governance, it looks at your strategy, and puts them into the technology, right? So all this data is also characterized, of course, by high integrity. This is data that you can truly use to reach whichever insights you need to drive your business. And it means also, going back to the experience of the client, that you will not have any more 17 different entries that could lead to the same client without you actually knowing that it is the same client, right? So Kangler don't call themselves a single source of truth. What they say about themselves is that they enable a single source of truth, because they look at all of your tools and they connect them in a way that provides you with that unified model, right? So this means that scalability is now exponential, and that your cost, we were talking about the cost of IT, are also much lower, because you can automate many more of your business processes effortlessly. And very importantly also, because you can reuse the information that you can pull from this single location, right? So instead of thinking of a single source of truth as a thing, you also could think about it as a way of being with your company's data, right? Okay, so in this slide, you see that first, when using Kangler, you import all of the tools and the data infrastructure that you want to use, right? The dashboard, okay, I'll show you some more pictures. Once you have done that, you are ready to manage your data analytic tools and your infrastructure in real time, right? From what they call the Kangler Ops, yeah? Kangler Ops command and control dashboard. Okay, after that has happened, this dashboard will help you detect faults and disruptions, right? And it will help you also to deploy new tools or find better alternatives to the tools that you already use, right? And you can look at it as a system with plug and play capabilities, right? And they can integrate at the moment 30 different tools and infrastructure services. And I believe this number will be growing up. And if you don't know which tools to use, Kangler will help you with their recommendations. So basically, Kangler is like a one-stop shop to help you cover those crucial insights that you need to make good decisions. And at the same time, you will be able to automate more and more of your business processes. Okay, so, but as I said, to be successful today with the digital transformation, you also need to integrate your people. And is anyone familiar with systemic team development? No? No. Okay, no problem. So I call systemic team development the Kangler of people, because I create a single source of truth also, yeah, like this, by connecting all of those departments that are not connected right now, all of the departments that are not talking to each other, right? So what systemic means is that I work with all stakeholders at the same time. And with stakeholders, I mean departments. So what you see in the picture, right, is me working with different departments of an organization. So we are talking data integration. Who could be the stakeholders? It could be, for instance, I don't know, legal, compliance, privacy, and data management. It could be IT and business. It could be CIO, business process analyst, and another role that is important to you. Or imagine you are a CPO and you are working with suppliers and vendors. We can jumpstart the process with you as a CPO, your suppliers, and your vendors. Think also, for instance, CEO, CTO, CDO, and data engineers. So this needs to be looked up also in a case by case, right? But basically, when we are working systemically, that means that we are working with all stakeholders at the same time. In the past, when there was a problem, we identified the problem department, we fixed that department, and we pretended that things were great again, yeah? But today, we acknowledge that conflict, big or small, or just simple friction among departments is just normal. It's always going to be present in an organization. And whenever there is collaboration among people doing all kinds of projects. So working systemically, with a Kangler of people normalizes all of this friction. And we choose to focus on how the entire set of departments is functioning. Because today, we cannot be successful by only answering to the needs of our own department. We need to think of the organization as a whole, right? So to give you an example of what I mean, when I work systemically, I work on the relationships between the departments. You remember when we were kids and we played with a rope, with a string in our hands that we would, intertwine? Okay, so imagine that my fingers are 10 departments, 10 stakeholders, and that rope is here. Imagine that. If one department does something, look at this index finger. That is going to create a different experience for the whole of the organization. If that same, look at my index finger here, if that same department lets go in a different way, that is also going to impact the organization. So in other words, all these departments that right now are isolated, that they are in silos, they are actually impacting each other, whether they are aware of it or not, right? So working systemically is observing how all these behaviors are having an impact on the entire organization, right? So organizations have all kinds of problems today, but they are not broken. They are in fact intelligent and they are creative, and people do have the ability to leave their personal positions behind, in service of a bigger goal, if the right circumstances are there. So for me, my job is to create those conditions so that better interaction becomes possible. So to make an analogy with data, when you have a data lake, right, you look at all those raw bits of information and you look for the connections, right? So in the same manner, you need to look at the data, at the people lake that is your organization, that is all those departments, and create the connections across layers and layers that will help you achieve your business goals. So that's why I was saying that you need both. You need to integrate your data, but you need to integrate your people, because today the name of the game is speed, right? So in this way, you can, by integrating data and people, you will be able to respond so quickly to what is happening outside that it will feel as if you are matching the heartbeat of your organization to the heartbeat of the market. And that should be really your main focus today. So hiring more people to solve the problems that we have is not a good solution for your problems today. And I am going to make another analogy, and I don't mean to be disrespectful of people. I'm going to say this just purely from a perspective of organization. But if you continue to hire people to solve problems, you are going to be creating like a junk box. If creating a single source of truth is looking at a junk box of data and getting rid of all duplicates and unifying what we need to unify, the same thing needs to happen to people. You need to do actually a spring cleaning of your organization, and you start doing that by not hiring extra people who are going to slow you down. Instead, you focus on the people that you have and how you can make those work better with each other, right? So does anyone have questions about this? Because I sometimes can talk a lot, and I don't want anyone to get lost, because some of this stuff might be new to some of you. So if anyone wants to ask any question, please go ahead.
I wanted to ask about what happens next, because I think from my work and my clients, we put in dashboards, and then yes, companies get the people to work together in some way, whether it's lean or some sort of team working to sort of get the whole thing moving and designed, but then we stop. So I think it's the sustainability of people working together and the sustainability of the underlying dashboard, which then becomes out of date quite quickly. As you say, our businesses move. That is one of the challenges. And I was wondering what your views were on that.
Yeah, so it's a great question for two reasons. If you look at Kangler updates itself continuously, also based on the input that I give them, based on the work that I do with people. And they also have self-healing technology. Yeah, so that means that, and your governance and your strategy are also in the Kangler system. So that means that whatever happens around you can be put in the technology so that you can still respond on time. But in order to answer the second question, I need to ask you, you say we get sort of working, as a team or even across departments, and then we stop. Why do you stop? Why do you think that happens?
I think it boils down to, in a sense, company strategy and company leadership. In a sense, that sort of continuous sort of a culture of sort of managing change and working across departmentals needs to be sustained from the top, and very often it isn't. But also, I think we also have a sort of counter issue of sort of expertise. Mm-hmm. So to create expertise, we continue to create departments of that expertise and sort of have them as sort of islands. And I think the challenge in organisations is about trying to sort of make expert parts of the organisation be part of the whole.
Yeah. Okay. So when you start working as a team, one way or the other, who is taking the initiative for that to happen? In your experience?
Well, I think if you're asking it of me, and I think the nub of it, as you partly say, is that some of these things are program, project driven rather than sort of leadership driven. So they're sort of one-off events.
Yeah, exactly. So in a couple of slides, I will cover this because this is very important, and this is something that I see all the time in organizations. But before we get to that, you were saying also something about responding in real time. And I told you that with Kangler, you can do that with your technology. The same thing applies to this tool that you see in the picture. When you work with stakeholders, right? If something changes in the market, you can bring the stakeholders back to the wheel and introduce that new information in the process. And if you discover that you might need to include other stakeholders, you invite them to this tool as well. So here you see me working with 3 departments, right? But I could work with as many departments as desired. And there will always be a space that is free where you see no papers, because that is where we build that single source of truth for the people, right? So systemic team development, as you see here, is also a tool for speed. It is not a process of, okay, today we do this work and it is done, bye-bye. No. You keep inviting people to this wheel, depending on what happens around you, right? I am going to show you what that looks like. It's also a video. So let me see. This one has no sound, so I don't need to remove my headphones. Just hold on. So if you look at this process, it's not supposed to have sound. Okay, so can you hear me?
Yes, hearing you.
Okay.
Fine.
So what you see is people moving across these wedges, because what we are building is this interconnection between the departments, right? And because of COVID, this is my next slide, I have developed a digital platform so that I can also do this work online. MLA, that stands for the Machine Learning Advantage. This is another one of my business associates. And basically, all these stakeholders come to the online session. They can choose a figure that represents each one of them. And the team can move themselves in real time on the platform. I'm going to show you. Right. So does anyone have questions about this?
So maybe could you elaborate a little bit more? Like, I see now sales and development. So is it more or less like, do they just start talking with each other? Is there more or less a business question, and then they get their different perspectives on it, or like where does it start and how? Like I didn't really get the idea of the wheel.
Okay. So let's say that we start the process with legal, compliance, privacy, and data management. That is 4 stakeholders, right? So I would have a pie, so to speak, with 5 spaces, yeah? And I would initiate a process in which everyone gets to hear, in the presence of everyone else, what they think about the challenge that they are facing. It can be a business challenge, it can be a strategic challenge, it can be any type of challenge that the organization is busy with at the moment, right? Then I ask, let's say, so I said compliance, legal, and privacy. So once everyone has been able to tell their side of the challenge, I ask compliance to leave their place. And I ask everyone else to go into the place of compliance. And then I start a dialogue between the real people in compliance and the people who are now standing in compliance, right? Then I do the same thing with privacy. I say, okay, everyone from the real privacy, go out of the wheel, and everyone else, please go into the space of privacy. And I initiate that dialogue again. So this is a way of not only making clear to everyone, you know, what everyone's views are of the challenge, but it is also an opportunity to put yourself really in the shoes of the other person. And at the end of the process, we go to that empty wedge and we start building that common direction to solve that issue at hand. And then, because we are building a 360 team so that all these people can collaborate, what we do is I tell compliance to pretend that they are privacy, and I ask privacy to pretend that they are data management, etc. I ask each stakeholder to pretend that they are another department, and I ask them to come up with solutions to the challenge from that place that they are occupying right now. So this is a way of becoming cross-functional and really starting to think outside of your own department. It's a long process, but it is really, it's very effective, and it allows you to create a 360 team in a rather structured and at the same time no-nonsense way. Even though the work sometimes can be kind of heavy, because I mean, when issues are big, you know, things can get heated. But nevertheless, it's a very no-nonsense way of working with groups. Is that clear for you now?
Yeah, thank you so much. And if I just a short question.
Sure.
Like I was now thinking of what you've mentioned more or less, that stick with the people you have and try to get them working together and really start thinking cross-functional. But sometimes I have the feeling that, especially when it's like a big company where people are spending more than 2 years and it doesn't have like the startup mentality, people are just like really habitual and really stick to what they know. So what are your experiences? Like, might it not sometimes be the case that some fresh minds, fresh ideas, it is a good thing that people come from the outside to just mix things up? Or can you really kind of like get the old guys think in a new way?
Yeah, by using these tools that I showed you, you can do that. But of course, you know, when it comes to hiring, you really need to hire well. Because also, I mean, it also depends on your budget and how you want to spend your budget. But, you know, replacing people all the time, bringing in new people is also very costly. So unless you have recruited really bad people, my experience is that the people that you have are good people. They are good enough. And if you use this type of development tools for your team, you can definitely evolve over time. And then you will not feel like you're always standing in the same place. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Are you the one who, you have a new startup, right?
No, actually, no. I'm just really curious about the topic.
Okay, someone had a startup, because I have a presentation about hiring and onboarding. So if anyone is interested, I could send you the link.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah.
So I startup.
Yeah. So yeah, unless the hiring has gone completely wrong, the people that you have is usually good enough. And if you focus on improving how they work together with this type of tools, then, you know, you will always be in a place of constant evolution and constant learning. So then you don't need to bring in extra people to you know, to make the work a little bit more interesting. So you really need to hire with intention of building a certain culture, and you need the right tools to be able to build that culture.
Question from my part also is, how do you compare it to the agile way of working? Like, you know, with the Netflixes, ING, and other bigger players who are also, well, trying to develop things in various teams, like you mentioned, cross teams, cross-functional teams.
Mm-hmm.
How would you compare?
I have never done a project for ING, so I honestly don't know the tools that they use. But if they are creating cross-functional teams, this is of course the way to go, because as I said, what you need today is speed. So yeah. But this really needs to happen, you know, at scale. It cannot be just a department, like the lady from the UK was saying, you know, or it cannot be just an initiative of a couple of people. It has to, you know, there has to be an interest at the top in transforming the entire organization. Because otherwise, in the best case scenario, you just have like an innovation team that works in that way. And that is nice. But of course, what you want to do is reproduce that at portfolio level so that the whole of the organization is sharing information in that manner. Yeah. But, yeah. Was that useful?
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Anyone who has more questions about this? So perhaps I should say something, because, you know, working cross-functionally is really like changing everything that we know about what collaboration actually means. Perhaps you're familiar with the expression, how you do anything, how you do everything, right? So if you remember Henry Ford, he is the one who invented this T model. It was a black car, and it was the car that the whole wide world wanted to have, right? So, because basically he could anticipate what everyone would want, he could create an assembly line that would allow it for him to be very efficient at building this car. So here's where the how you do anything, how you do everything comes. What did we do? We copied that system in order to design our organizations. So that's why organizations today also look like an assembly line. Horizontally, the departments, you know, each department only focus on their thing, but also vertically, each level of leadership also focusing only on their own interests. It's basically Henry Ford, the Henry Ford model, vertically and horizontally. And what has happened? The world has changed dramatically. It's changing all the time. It looks like it's never going to stop. And we are trying to be successful in that world that is, you know, swirling around with this kind of rigid structures, yeah, of people and departments not talking to each other. So there is no way to be speedy with these kind of structures. So the big challenge today really is making that transition from the Henry Ford model to this way of collaborating cross-functionally with the sole purpose of speed. I cannot say this enough. Today, the key word is really speed. So the old model of efficiency, the Henry Ford efficiency, doesn't work today. We need a new efficiency. And what is that? Systemic tools, like the ones that I'm showing you. Yeah? Because when something changes, you come back to the wheel and you decide on new steps. Something changes again, you come back to the wheel. And kind of the same thing, something changes, we include that in your strategy, we include that in your governance, and we put it in your technology. Yeah, in that way, you can be really speedy. In the time of Henry Ford, information was also power. Yeah, so the habit of hoarding information for the sake of my own department, that comes also from Henry Ford, when people, you know, would only get access to one tiny bit of the work that needed to be done. But today, we need to have a meta view of the organization, yeah, and interact with the market as things are happening, right? So today, information is not power anymore. Today, information is only power if it is being shared, right? Okay, so let me see.
So if you are saying, so data should be still owned by, you are saying technology, so meaning like IT department. So the IT of the organization should be the one who should be taking about the data governance, about the duplicity of data, data management, and so on. And then let's say the organization should organize around the data, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, Okay, so we need to reinvent IT, right? And we need to, one of the things that we need to do that is to invite IT to the business table. But of course, this has never been done this way. So I propose to use systemic tools, you know, the wheel with the wedges, and one wedge could be IT, and another wedge could be the business, and another wedge, I don't know, it depends on the needs of the organization. And then we need to start linking all of these departments, yeah, so that they start working towards a common goal. So in my opinion, IT needs to stop being a service provider and needs to be really part of the business, and vice versa, business also part of the IT. And it is thanks to these tools that we can achieve this common, you know, working as a single unit, so to speak. But this means flipping our heads around. I mean, it means doing things, yeah, entirely different. So it takes time, because as I said, as we do everything, no, as you do anything, as you do everything, right? So we have been doing things in a certain way for hundreds of years. And now we are saying 360 teams, and it is still hard to believe that that is actually possible. But it is. It is just that it will take time. But yeah, so traditionally, collaboration has been seen as micromanaging others also, you know, telling everyone what they need to do, how they need to do it, when they need to do it. So working as a 360 with the right governance means also giving people autonomy to do work more as they see fit, and being deliberate about, I will talk about that. I said that governance is not only about protection and control, but also about enablement, right? So we need to be deliberate about giving knowledge workers of today the autonomy to do the work as they see fit. But this is, again, changing how we do everything that we know so far. Okay. I realized that I haven't told you anything about who I am. So I used to be a pianist of contemporary music in the Netherlands. And perhaps you're now thinking, how can a pianist talk about technology and about people integration? It's very strange. So I've been working with technology for 20 years, and it all started in the contemporary music scene in Amsterdam. So the floor plan that you see on the right, that belongs to a performance that I gave somewhere around 2000, the year 2000, and that involved 10 grand pianos, and I was one of the pianists. And also 5 software developers, which are in blue in the middle, right? And we use algorithms, and we put mics into the piano and then into the computer, and we use algorithms to alter the sound of the piano, and also to trigger visuals. So you can see what it looks like on the picture on the left, right? This is in a concert hall called Paradiso in Amsterdam, right? And the hexagon that you see in the middle is a composition which is called hexagoni. And this is a one-pager. Believe it or not, this is music. This is music notation. This is a score. Yeah, you get this in front of your eyes and you make music out of this. And this is called a graphic score. And you can compare it, for instance, with a business model canvas. It is really a one-pager, and it gives you a set of restrictions, and it gives you a common goal, and it's a serious game. And for the rest, you are free to do the work as you see fit. And by the way, in this performance that you see here, the audience was also free to walk in between the pianos and the software developers. So basically, as an artist, my work revolved around organizing people and technology towards the achievement of a goal, which in this case was a performance on the stage, right? And these graphics, this was a very simple way to visualize the complexity of organizing all those people and all that technology, right? So to make an analogy with data integration, these tool that you see here, and that which corresponds to what you just saw with the team, this was my way of creating that cross-functionality, that single source of truth, right? Okay. There was another element to this work, and that was the business. It was very niche kind of work, so there was no clear demand and supply for what I was doing. So, which meant that I also had to create a market for these productions, right? So, as an artist, my work revolved around high performance in a collaborative setting, business in a highly networked ecosystem, that was the music market, and the use of algorithms to expand the sound possibilities of the instruments that we were using. So performance, business, and technology, those are also the ingredients that you need today for a successful digital business, right? For successful digital transformation. So basically, I translated all of those tools that I learned from the arts into tools for teams and organizations, right? And here the stakeholders are the musicians. Here the stakeholders is also the audience, who is also free to walk around, is the software developers, and we would charge the wheel, that is this graphic score, in order to organize that whole process. Yeah, so somehow, when you look at my previous career and when you look at my current one, you know, it is actually the same thing: people, technology, business, right? And I am some kind of floor plan lady, drawing things on the ground so that I can create these integrated teams. So that's a bit about who I am, which I have not told you. Based on what I just told you, then it makes sense that today I am working with technology again, because as I said, I've been doing this for 20 years. So working with a machine learning advantage to create this digital platform to work with clients is, you know, for me, it's an innovation project, just like I was doing when I was in the arts. And working with Kangler is exactly, yeah, the same thing. So innovation in technology has always been, yeah, my everyday food, so to speak. Okay. To give you an example of what working in this way would look like, I want to take this as an example. I don't know if you have noticed, but e-commerce in Germany has picked up a bit more slowly than in other countries. And if you look at the case that you have in front of you, and based on my experience with this specific company, is because this was a rather traditional organization. It was very much focused on the German market. This is German for the Germans. And now with COVID, they are being pushed into becoming fully digital. So their situation is exactly that. They want to become fully digital, and also they're going global, which means that they need to deal with other cultures where business is done in a different way than in Germany. And they're going away from physical retail. They're getting rid of the shops. All of their marketing is moving online. And if you remember the matrix that I showed you, the goal for them is to end up in that top right quadrant where data is integrated and the people are also integrated, right? They want to make decisions in real time. They want to grow the market share. They want to improve the ROI on the IT investment. In other words, they want to get rid of that problem of technical debt. They want to get rid of that issue of paying people to do work that they have already done before. They want IT to stop being a service provider, and they want IT to become part of how they make money, of that story, how they make money, right? That's what I mean with improving the ROI on the IT investment. And in terms of innovation, they want to develop new product lines, but also new ways of leadership. And if you look at the challenges, probably many of them will be familiar to you. They have many tools, and the data is very, there is a lot of it and it's very fragmented. You wouldn't believe it, but most of this data has been collected by the individual shops. So yeah, there is a lot that needs to happen in there in terms of technology. because it is a rather traditional and hierarchical organization, the departments are, of course, not talking to each other. There is low data literacy. The legacy systems are also kind of outdated. And as I said, they are very hierarchical. So in light of all of these, what would it look like to work with them? So this might surprise you, but when doing a data integration project, I never really start with the technology. I start with what I call people ops, right? And what is that? That is three things: building that 360 team, right? And for starters, I work with a very small team. It's simply 10 to 15 people. And during the consulting, before the process, we get to decide who those 10 to 15 people are going to be, right? We start right away by working on strategy, because everything that you do today with data should relate to the business outcomes that you want to achieve. So the question that is really important here is, what quantifiable business value is this data integration strategy supposed to bring your company? And we do that exactly at the beginning. And number three, we also start with governance right away, because governance is not only about protection and control, but it is also about enablement. In other words, you want to be deliberate in giving people access to your information and be able to trust that they are going to work well with that data, right? Okay, that's why I said that governance is a power issue, right? It has to do with sharing, and sharing is something that we are not used to doing, and that is going to alter the power dynamics in an organization. So this is really the big thing. So that's why we put it at the beginning. Besides, Kangler put the governance and the strategy in your technology. So this is also one reason why we start with these three things, right? So I work with this, let's call it innovation team or enablement team for 6 months. Let's say 30 to 60 days into the process, you already start to see you already start working with the Kangler dashboard, and that Kangler software will continue to develop itself somewhere between 2 and 5 years, depending on the size of your organization and also where you are on the integration matrix, right? And when I am done with that first innovation team during those 6 months, I move to other teams until we can reproduce all of that at portfolio level, right? So the working with the teams and the working with the technology, that is a continuum that is continuously influencing each other, right? So let me see. By the way, is anyone familiar with a software called Quaderno? No? Okay, doesn't matter. The reason why I want to mention is I love making analogies. Quaderno is an accounting software, and it knows all the VAT regulations for all countries. So when you have to make a bill for a client, Quaderno knows exactly what you don't need to worry about. So Kangler does that too. So think of something like GDPR. That is comparable to a sort of VAT regulation. All of those regulations will be built into the Kangler thing right away. But as we continue to work on strategy, as we continue to work on the governance, we introduce all of that new information in the software, yeah, so that the software can grow with you as you develop as an organization. Okay, so it is, what is the time? I cannot see it in my computer. We still got some time, right?
15 minutes left.
15 minutes, okay. So I have 3 more slides about governance, about strategy, and about data literacy. So I say that governance is also about enablement, and this is a power issue. So what you see here is a card game that I developed in order to make empowerment, or in order to make the sharing of information deliberate, right? So yeah. Here I only show you 2 of the cards, but it's a game with 7 cards. And,
Santales,
yes.
May I have a question? You have mentioned data literacy education. How do you recommend companies to approach that?
Yeah, I will tell you in a minute. Can I finish governance? I will try to be very quick, right? So, okay, I got lost a little bit. So governance is about enablement. So you need to be deliberate about wanting to share the information. And this game makes it very no-nonsense and very easy to actually give more and more people access to the information that you have. If you look at governance, how it is done traditional, it is also in the style of Henry Ford. It is really very little people with access to very little information, but that doesn't scale today, right? So by playing this game, you deliberately, as a leader, give more and more access to people, to the information that you have, and you give them also autonomy in a regulated way, so that they can use that data. So basically this helps you determine who has access to which data and under which circumstances and what they can do with it, right? Okay, so the next slide is about strategy. I don't need to say a lot about that. I told you in the beginning that you need to look at strategy in 2 ways. Your data strategy needs to be put into your software and to your handler at the beginning, because it ties to the business outcomes that you want to achieve. But then gradually you want to see that digital strategy becoming one and the same with your corporate strategy. Because as I said before, today, it doesn't matter what you do, medical supplies, banking, insurance, whatever, you are a software business, if that is how you want to make money, right? Okay, about the data literacy, I also have a slide about that. Okay, so not everyone in a company has to be a data scientist, but it is necessary that everyone becomes, you know, someone who can work with data. And not only someone who has the ability to do so, but who also has the motivation to do so. Yeah? You don't want only data scientists in your organization to be the ones who are passionate about data. By the way, not being data literate is, again, a huge cost for many organizations. I think organizations miss, on average, about 43 hours a year per employee due to data-related stress. People who stay home because they cannot deal with this whole data tsunami, right? So the lack of literacy is also very, very costly. Very few people feel confident with data. That is the bad news. But the good news is that a large percentage of people, as many as 78%, according to research, are willing to learn about it if given the right conditions. So, like with everything else, Radka, and to answer your question, data literacy needs to start at the top, and it needs to start with why. With why? Because basically, when you are championing such a program, you are a salesperson. And when you tell people the why of this data literacy need, they will be able to move more easily, right? It also needs to start at the top. So let's say that you are championing this program, your best bet is probably talking to your CDO, if there is one in your organization. Because this is a person who, will be passionate about the issue and who has actually the task of transforming the organization. Now, not all organizations have this role. In other organizations, you have the CTO, which in this case is not the technical officer, but the transformation officer. That could be also a possible person. If that person is not there, don't despair. Just aim for the highest rank that you can find within your organization that is also passionate about data, and then go with that, right? So it could also be a VP of analytics to give you an example, right? So you need to combine rank with passion for the mission. That's the formula, right? And then you need to lead up. And what I mean with that is that even if someone has a higher rank than yourself, you should look, you should be mindful of your lower rank, but at the same time, you should see yourself as a partner of this person. And you should see this person as someone who is just like you, makes mistakes, is struggling, is trying to do their best, and just use, as kids, for instance, we are using to leading up. We had to negotiate all kinds of things with our parents, for instance, yeah? So we can transfer all those skills to the workplace so that we can influence these people who are officially above us and see how we can become partners with them. To further answer your question, I think when it comes to data literacy, you need to look upon it not just as a course or a program, something you do and it's done, thank you very much. No. I think it needs to be an integral part of the learning process of your organization so that you really see yourself as a company that is continuously evolving. And believe it or not, today it's very important to create human workplaces, and the impact of data literacy on team members can actually be huge. I don't know if you know this author, Daniel Pink, but he says that one of the most important values for knowledge workers today is autonomy, right? So by having a data literacy program, yeah, you're actually creating a more human place because you are giving your people autonomy to work with data, right? So that's also a very positive angle to look at it. So you will see more engagement, you will see more trust in the organization, you will see more productivity, and and gradually you will see a new culture evolve, right? So we still got 5 minutes. I can't see the time now. I was just wondering if anyone has any kind of questions.
I think it's extremely difficult for a really large and traditional organization. So, if you are starting the company, it's much easier to really transform your organization around the data. But with the large traditional companies with already a lot of existing IT systems, you are exactly close in the situation that every department is solving their problem on their own somehow.
Yes, that is true. That's absolutely true. So that's why my process starts with these 6 months. I pick 10 to 15 people who are really into this and who are at the top. And we consider that the strategy team or the innovation team, some kind of enablement team is also a possible name. If we start with that, then the chances of success are bigger. Not only because they start seeing how the data works for them, to their advantage, but also because they become ambassadors for the rest of the organization. And then it's much easier to work with the rest of the teams. So it's always this one, and then, another 6 months with the next team, and another 6 months until it is at portfolio level. But it's a long process. I mean, typically, you will be somewhere between 2 and 5 years doing all of this work. a regular company, a large one, usually takes 5 years to transform. That is a normal. So yeah, you are totally right. But yeah, but we don't need to change the world, you know, overnight. It's okay that it goes slower. So
Sonsoles, I was going to ask about that your approach actually seems to show wins for the organization all along the way. So they have this something that they can share with the organization, and then it continues to build, rather than having these big transformational programs that you have to wait, you know, 2 years before you start seeing the first results. So it actually sort of feeds the momentum, it seems, this approach by getting these quick wins and then building and building and building upon it, which I think is something that people can then relate to much better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, definitely.
I have one question from audience. How do you start with a very large traditional company? So I think it's following up my question. So where really is the point? Who is kicking off such, you know, such transformation?
Yeah, so that depends per organization. But the key here is to assemble that team of 10 to 15 people. And I aim for the top, and there will be someone, the person who brings me in, who wants to champion this initiative, right? So it could be, as I said, the CDO could be in there, the CEO could be in there, but there could be also people from business units. I mean, business units are also, they are struggling. They are often knocking on IT, you know, I need this, I cannot move forward. So this team contains people really from the top, but also from other layers, because there is usually someone who is the champion for the initiative. Yeah, but who is going to be the difference per organization? That is part of the consulting process before we start. So yeah.
Okay. So we have 1 minute left. So has anyone else any questions to Sonsoles? I think we had great discussion. So you have either last chance to ask here, or I think we can stay in touch, right, Sonsoles, for...
Yeah, definitely. You know, if you have any questions, you can always shoot me a message. And I don't know if you feel comfortable about this, but I was thinking that if you have more questions, I could do a Facebook Live. I do not have LinkedIn Live yet, but I do have Facebook Live. If you feel comfortable asking questions on Facebook, then we could use that platform to answer even more questions. But otherwise, just shoot me a message, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. So no problem.
Yes, I have a question. Do you think that maybe it's too late? Do you think that all sectors are concerned? That in every single activity or industry, you should start a digital transformation?
I think yes. I think today, no matter what you are doing, even if you are selling solar panels, you are still a digital business. Even myself, I mean, look at me. I also developed a platform to be able to do this work online. And I am also automating more and more of my services. So even a consultancy can be a fully digital business. So yes, I think that's where we are going. You cannot, I mean, IT is not anymore a service provider. It is how you make that money. It's part of the whole business picture. So yes, I think everyone is going into that direction.
Okay, well, thanks a lot, because it was really very insightful.
Really? Okay, I'm glad to hear. Thank you for letting me know.
Lots of concrete tools and new ideas. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If anyone feels like giving me feedback, of course, I appreciate it. It's good to hear when you do something right. So that would be nice.
Absolutely wonderful webinar. Thank you. I also took away a lot of new ways of thinking about that topic. Thank you so much.
Okay, well, Happy to hear. More love. Please give me some love. Love Sonsoles.
So Sonsoles, thank you so very much for doing this webinar for us. And on behalf of the European Women on Boards, again, a big thank you. And for the Digital Strategy Mentoring Program, I'm so happy that you're part of the program, and I'd love to be your mentee someday.
Oh, that's a nice compliment, but I am sure we can both learn from each other. So it's mutual. Okay. Okay.
Martina, any closing comments?
I think thank you very much as well from my side. We will be sending the short feedback form around you, so I will then share with Sonsoles. So whatever suggestion you would have or you would like to continue, write it us to the feedback form, and we will prepare for you in upcoming weeks another hopefully interesting session.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Sounds good. Sounds great. Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you.
And,
thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Sonsoles. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.